Welcome to Divine Feminine Rising with Mez Delene. I'm Mez Delene, and my intention with this podcast is to entertain, educate, and illuminate as I share the power and magic of the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for your time and attention. In this episode, I want to talk about judgment. And I know that we all make judgments every day, probably every hour, maybe every minute. We make judgments on whether or not it's a good time to do a project, or we make a judgment on which direction to go when we plan a trip. We might look at a map and think about the different ways of getting somewhere, and then we make a judgment or a decision, which is a judgment, based on what we judge to be the best way to go, right? And so judgment is also a way of making decisions in our lives. However, the other type of judgment is what I wanted to address today, and that is judging other people or judging ourselves, and having that judgment be a detriment to us as loving, kind people. So I want to remind you that when you are in alignment with the Divine Feminine, you are in alignment with love. And the degree to which you are out of alignment with the Divine Feminine is the degree with which you are out of alignment with love and are more in alignment with fear. So a little bit of out of alignment, there might be a little bit of fear, but if you're a lot out of alignment, there's a lot of fear going on. So that's something to really stay conscious of being in that loving space. And sometimes judgment takes us out of that loving space. For instance, that guy that cut you off in traffic, often our first reaction is to judge that person as being a jerk. And while they may very well be a jerk, they may also have just gotten a phone call telling them that their child was hit by a car and they are trying to get to the hospital as quickly as they can. And cutting you off was merely them trying to get there more quickly. So when I have someone cut me off in traffic, I don't automatically jump to the conclusion that they've done something wrong or something is wrong with them. I think that, they might be having an emergency right now. And then I also think, have I ever cut someone off in traffic? And indeed, I have by accident. So I think about that, right? I think about, well, who am I to judge someone else? I'm not perfect. So when I was in high school, I was very shy. I was a chubby teenager. I was shy, self-conscious, all those things. And I didn't really talk to very many people because I was afraid to. And then in my junior year, the end of the junior year, I got asked to the prom by my best friend's brother. I was very excited. He was very handsome, and I was so excited that I got asked to the prom, but I was also afraid, right? But I went to the prom, and neither one of us really knew how to dance, but we did do the slow dances. And I really had a good time, and I enjoyed myself. But at the prom, it was just about me and him. And so prom is usually at the end of the year in May, and school was out towards the beginning of June. And then my senior year, I come back to school and people are talking to me. Boys even talk to me. And I'm looking around thinking, what is going on? I've been at this school for 3 years and people never talk to me. And so I got my guts up And I asked my lab partner in chemistry, who was a guy, why are guys talking to me now? They never have before. And he said, well, we just thought you were really stuck up. But then when you started dating Martin, we realized that you couldn't be stuck up if you were dating him. Wow, that was such a lesson for me and such an eye-opener. It was amazing. So I didn't talk to people because I was shy, but they judged me as being stuck up because I didn't talk to people. So that was a really good lesson for me about judgment. And so after that, when I saw people who came into a room or who were at an event or who were walking down the hall at school and they were not talking to people, I didn't automatically assume that there was something wrong with them, that they were rude or stuck up or whatever. I thought, well, maybe they're shy. And as it turns out, most of the time they are. So remember that. Might have already found that out yourselves, but maybe not. It's a different way of looking at people. So judgment is fear-based, and it results in conditional love. For instance, if you act a certain way or do certain things and you do them the way that I judge appropriate or judge okay, I will love you. And opposite of that, of course, is unconditional love. So acceptance rather than judgment leads to unconditional love. When you accept someone just the way they are, right where they're at, without expectation of them being any different, without trying to change them or expect them to act in a certain way, that's unconditional love. And so, to me, the divine feminine is about unconditional love. Not just love, but unconditional love. And it's been my mission in life to be as unconditionally loving as possible and to accept people just the way they are. And taking that one step further, it's about not judging myself. It's about applying that concept to ourselves, not just not judging other people, but not judging ourselves. Loving ourselves just the way we are, where we are at, and knowing that we are doing the best we can with what we have to work with, and that when we are able to do better, we will do better. So it's important not to judge other people, but even more important not to judge ourselves, because that will help us not be judgmental, right? So one of the things that you can do in order to let go of judgment is to focus on people's strengths, not their weaknesses. Look at what people are good at, not at what they struggle at. This is especially with people that you know, people that you are in relationships with, for instance. Focus on their strengths. Focus on all the good things about them instead of focusing on their weaknesses and the things that you don't like about them or the things that you want them to change. Because in reality, they are perfect just the way they are. And it's your judgment that makes them less than perfect. When you focus on their strengths and the good things about them, you start seeing them in a more loving light, and they feel that, you will find that they'll respond to that. and that any behavior that maybe wasn't appropriate or was over the top in a negative way starts to kind of ease away often, maybe not all the time. And I'm not advocating staying in a relationship that is abusive or negative. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how when you're in a relationship with someone, sometimes the little things start to bug you more and you become more and more judgmental and forget the reason you fell in love with this person in the first place and how creative they are and how strong they are and how they have a great work ethic, and you start focusing on that they forgot to take the garbage out or whatever, right? And those things build up, and then you start to see them through a judgmental eye instead of through a loving eye. So those are things that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about actual abuse. That's something that shouldn't be tolerated. That's not making a judgment. That is, if someone's causing you harm, it's okay to make a decision based on your safety and your well-being, no matter what. Okay, so I want to give you an example of something that happened to me when I was working for a chiropractor. He ran a special. It was in Groupon, and there was a Groupon coupon that the first visit was free, and it was a consultation. And so this woman, when she made her appointment, she said she had the Groupon coupon. And then when she was checking in at the front desk, I asked her for her coupon. And she went ballistic. How dare you ask me for that? How dare you humiliate me in public by asking for that? And she read me the riot act up and down and back and forth and in and out and sideways and frontways. And she just didn't stop. She ended up just yelling at me. And it was really dramatic. And I'm standing there looking at her, and I just, every once in a while I would interject, I am so sorry. And then she got done with her angry outburst, and she went and sat down and clutched her purse in her lap. And then before I called her back for her appointment with the doctor, I took him aside and I said, there is something very wrong with her. She is hurting really badly. And I don't know exactly what's wrong. I don't know if it's her back is just killing her. But I just want you to know before you go in the room that she's suffering. So I take her back and I put her in the room, and then she comes out and she leaves. And after work, the doctor takes me aside and he says, I just want you to know that if I didn't know you so well and didn't know what a loving person you are and how much your loving presence has increased my business, I would probably be firing you right now after that lady told me what a horrible ordeal you put her through. And then he went on to say, and you were right, she was suffering. Not only was she in physical pain, but her husband died last week, and her brother died 2 weeks before that, and her mother died 2 months ago. And she was in both physical and emotional pain. So I not judge this woman. I had not judged her as being a bad person or being, I didn't return her anger. I didn't try to tell her I did nothing wrong. I don't know what's wrong with you or anything like that. I just told her I was sorry. And she ended up making another appointment with the doctor. And when she came in for her next appointment, she brought me a plate of cookies. And she apologized to me. And she said, I am so sorry for the way I acted last week. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. And I just laid my hand on her arm and I said, it's okay. Thank you for the cookies. Thank you for the apology. I know that you are going through a very hard time. And she became a patient over a period of time and ended up, getting well, both physically and over time emotionally. And it could have been a whole different scenario if I had been judgmental to her and if I hadn't seen her pain and just kept giving her love. I just stood there while she was yelling at me and I just kept giving her love and accepting her exactly the way she was, accepting her where she was at in that moment, because I knew that she deserved my unconditional love. I knew that she was in a lot of pain and that my response, being angry, would have added to her pain. And there was no way I could do that. So I just loved her right where she was at. But when it comes to things like this, people cutting you off in traffic, people yelling at you or whatever, I think of how can I judge them when I've done the very same thing? Or I may not have yelled and screamed at somebody like that poor lady did, but I've been in pain and I might have cut them off in traffic or cut them off verbally, been not been kind or loving in a moment, right, when I'm upset. So I can't judge other people. And it reminded me when I was thinking about this podcast, it reminded me of the story in the Bible where Jesus came across people that they were going to stone a woman for some thing she did, and he told them, he who has never sinned may cast the first stone. And I always remembered that story because whether or not you believe in sin, you can change the words. He who has never done anything wrong can cast the first stone. The reality is we all make mistakes. We all do things wrong. So who are we to judge another person? It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with the facts of life. No one is perfect. We have all made mistakes. And so that's what this is about. This is about owning that we are not perfect, owning that we can't expect other people to be perfect, and loving ourselves and loving other people, accepting ourselves and accepting other people, knowing that we are doing the best we can in this moment, and that if we could be doing something different, we would be doing something different. So remember, love yourself and love others. And if we all did that, wouldn't the world be a beautiful place to live? Thank you for joining me today. My mission is to help bring back the balance of the divine feminine to spirituality. Please share my podcasts with anyone who might be interested in the divine feminine and personal empowerment. And if you'd like to connect with me further, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at mezdelene.com Divine Feminine Rising with MezDelene.com, Mez Delene Bliss or Mez Delene on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And please also join my mailing list if you'd like to receive my newsletter. And remember, I love you unconditionally. Allow the light of your love to shine. Be the change, lead the way, and always remember your light of love is a needed gift to the world that only you can give.